Alright, in this video, I want to talk about some of the tricks of Satan, and how he manipulates and controls people. But before I do, I'd like to give a word from my sponsor, Jesus Christ, and that is, if you're not saved, get saved. You may be saying, get saved from what? Well, aren't you going to die someday? Couldn't it be right now? God forbid. And are you prepared for that? Are you prepared to meet your Maker? We're all condemned to death and hell, but God is for us, not against us. This is the good news, that even though we are condemned and we deserve hell, Jesus is willing to step in and take our place, to give His life to us if we would give Him our life. So if you would give your life to God right now, 100% of it, past, present, and future, Jesus will take it, and He will go through judgment for you and take on your condemnation to death and hell 2,000 years ago. So your past, present, and future, your whole life has already been judged, and then you can have His life that has already been lived and judged, where He was found righteous and just, and you will have His life clothed with His righteousness. If you would just humble yourself to accept this, everything would be taken care of. And another thing I would like to say before I get into this is that I'm thinking of doing a live stream this Monday, January the 12th. I was going to do it on my YouTube channel, MandiMorin, but for some reason it wouldn't go. It said to give YouTube 24 hours to do something. I guess take a look at my channel or something. So I won't be able to do it there, at least not right away. So I'm going to do that test run on the Dog Deuce channel, which has more subscribers on it anyway. So for anybody who's watching from my YouTube channel, MandiMorin, check out the Dog Deuce if you want to check out that live stream. Hopefully this Monday. It's kind of a test run, that's why I haven't put up like a notification for it, and I haven't done it before. I'm not quite sure how it all works. Trying to figure it all out, so it may take like a few weeks of doing it before I'm actually know what I'm doing and can handle it and be able to put up all that stuff. But anyway, to the video. What I have here is strings holding up a brain and a heart, because this is showing the different ways that Satan manipulates and controls people. And I like that the way it's being held is with that 666 little symbol there, right? They're all held up like that. I was like, this is a perfect picture for what I want to talk about. Now, some of the things that Satan uses to control and manipulate you is emotions. Like he'll use love, right? Hey, we're family. We're best friends. I thought you loved me, right? So you need to not call me out on my bullshit. You need not to question me in the things that I say and do. Right? You're supposed to love me and support me no matter what, even if what I'm doing is wrong, because we're family, we're best friends, we're lovers, right? Right? You're supposed to do this for me, right? So they manipulate you in that way. And then another thing is, everybody's dealt with this in different ways, shapes, and forms, is guilt trips. Right? They'll put the guilt trip on you. Like you want to start calling out their bullshit, and then all of a sudden, well, remember that time you did this and you said that and I didn't say anything, right? And it's like, well, you should have, right? That's my mindset. It's like, yeah, if I said something wrong, I did something wrong, and you didn't say anything, I'm not taking that as, oh, I owe you one. No, I'm taking that as you were too cowardly and weak to say something about it. Right? That doesn't mean I'm not going to say anything about it. Right? Or, oh, I took care of you on these things. You needed help and I helped you out. And it's like, yeah, does that mean you own me now? Does that mean I shouldn't say anything about anything you've ever said or done in your life? Right? This is what, gangs do. Right? They'll help out these poor and needy people and then say, well, now you got to do something for us. Right? They guilt trip them. Aren't we your new family? Right? Even a church family will do this, right? Don't call out our false doctrine because we're a family, and we were taking care of you during this and that, right? And it's like, it's just manipulation and control you to keep you from actually speaking out against things that are wrong and clearly wrong, right? Another thing is fear tactics, right? Fear tactics they really like to use because fear puts you into this state where you want to get rid of the fear. And it allows them to put a lot of nonsense into your head because you want to get rid of that fear. So it could be like a family with your spouse. Oh, I'm going to leave you. Like they put the fear of, oh, I'm going to leave you. And that they can use to control and manipulate you because you don't want them to leave. Or I'm going to off myself, right? They're going to, right? Controlling and manipulating you using, oh, I don't want you to do that, right? These might not be extreme fear tactics, but then, fear tactics can get a lot worse, such as what the government will do. Oh, these certain groups, these governments, they want to take away your freedom. These cartels are coming and they're going to destroy your families. And, oh, these nations want to nuke our nation, right? And when you get into this fear state, you want that fear to go away. So they're like, oh, you want all this to be taken care of, like global warming and all this? How about you pay more money, and then with that money we can take care of this problem, right? So you see that manipulation using emotions, because when you use emotions you get people not thinking clearly. Because if somebody was saying 2 + 2 is 5 and you're thinking logically, well, I got 2 fingers here, I got 2 fingers here, 1, 2, 3, 4, I put them together, I get 4. And if I did this with rocks or apples or oranges or whatever I did it with, if I put 2 of anything with anything else, I always end up getting 4. And you're saying it's 5. And they don't want to be questioned, right? So they'll say, oh, you're going to get fired, right? You want to lose your job, you want to lose your social status, you want your wife to end up divorcing you, and you can't pay for your children's tuition and all this stuff, right? Doing all this stuff, fear tactics to get you to shut up and not call out their bullshit, right? And this is one of those ways of going about doing it. Other things have to do more with the brain here, where they use different kind of arguments and appeals, where they will appeal to anything but the truth. Like, again, if they want to say 2 + 2 is 5, they're not going to use some logic like, hey, look, when I put 2 fingers here and 2 fingers here and I put it together, 1, 2, 3, 4, I get 4. Whoa, simple, easy, right? That's not 5. This is 5, right? This is 4. So, yeah, I mean, easy, right? You appeal to logic, to reason, and you appeal to other people being able to think for themselves and to figure it out on themselves. But these people are like, no, you're too stupid to do this on your own. So they make an appeal to, oh, well, I'm older. I remember even when I was young, there was a kid who lived above me who thought he was older than I was. I ended up being a year older than he was. And he was saying something, and I was like, that's not right. And he was like, well, I'm older. And I was like, so? And then we shared each other's birthday, and it was like, well, I'm actually older than you. And then he was all upset. He was like, yeah, so you can't use an appeal to age, right? So showing like even children will use this kind of thing as manipulation, right? Oh, I'm older. So that doesn't mean you're right and everything you say is the truth, right? But, people will refer to age. Experience. Experience, there's a lot that come from age and experience, but that doesn't mean somebody who's experienced actually learned anything doing what they're doing. There's a lot of people who coast through school just doing the bare minimum and doing some cheating and all this stuff. So they didn't really learn too much, and they don't really know what they're doing, right? They just did whatever they got to do to get through what they have to go through. So they got some, experience. And sometimes they do this with a job. Like, I'm sure you know a lot of people who've been on your job for a long time, but they don't know what they're doing. And they might have been there longer than you have. They're just doing enough not to get fired. Because it's just a paycheck to them. They don't really care about the job. They don't really have any kind of integrity or self-respect in that kind of way. They just want the money, right? So they make an appeal. Well, I've been here longer, and they try to tell you how to do the job that you've been doing just fine, even though you've been there maybe half as long as they have. But they don't know what they're doing because they don't care. But when you question them and call them out on their bullshit, all of a sudden their experience matters, right? But on the other hand, there's people who are older and they have experience, and you can learn a lot from them. But they will actually appeal to logic and reason and common sense, right? Saying, hey, you can do this yourself, right? You just need to learn it yourself and practice it, right? But these other people who just act like, oh, I know it all and I have all the information, they don't want to be questioned because they're full of shit, right? So they'll make appeals to education. Oh, 2 + 2 is 5. I've been to college, you haven't. I have a PhD. And it's like, well, you got a PhD in retardation or something because they gave you like a lobotomy in there or something because you can't think clearly if you think 2 + 2 is 5. You think you're following some wise philosophy or something. No, they convinced you to be an idiot. You paid them a whole boatload of money to dumb you down and to think you know what you're talking about when you don't. Then again, there is times where you can go get educated on something and you can learn a lot. But if you use that as an appeal to get people not to question you, it's manipulation, right? Another thing would be appeals to authority. Well, I'm in this position of authority. And it's like, okay. Does that mean, you're infallible? You cannot be wrong? So just because you're, let's say, the boss at a job, now all of a sudden you get to decide what is truth and you can say 2 + 2 is 5 now? Just because you're in an authority position doesn't mean that truth itself is subject to you. It doesn't matter if you're the President of the United States, the King of the world. The truth is not subject to you. You don't get to decide what truth is and what it isn't. So making an appeal to authority is just another way to get you not to question their bullshit. Right? And we see this in government, we see this in religion, we see this in schools, we see this in our jobs, we even see this done in families. Right? All these different types of control tactics to keep people from questioning and challenging the authority and the narrative that they put forth and all the lies and the bullshit, so that they can have this imaginary world and you go along with it and not fight against it. And this is just some of the different tactics that are used to manipulate through emotion and the mind. Some would involve both, like gaslighting, right, where they just kind of make stuff up and change subjects and randomly do things and push your buttons and trigger you to both get your emotions going and to cause mental confusion. So you're not thinking too clearly because you're like, nothing you're saying is making sense. What's going on? Why are you talking like this? What? And then they're, throwing some insults and subtle digs and being passive aggressive. So your emotions are also getting involved and getting irritated. And then they're like having fun with it, like ha ha ha. Like those memes where they show like, oh, I already lost the argument 15 minutes ago, but now I keep arguing just to piss you off. That's like gaslighting, right? It's just another tactic to manipulate and control. Because some people, when this is done to them, they just get exhausted and they just give up. Be like, whatever, right? You're right. Just leave me alone. And then they feel like, oh, I won, right? But they didn't. They just get the other person so annoyed and exhausted and irritated that they just were like, whatever, right? But yeah, they'll do things like that. They'll gaslighting and manipulating, using appeals to the majority, like peer pressure. Like, all these other people believe me that 2 + 2 is 5. What, do you think you are right and everybody else is wrong? Yeah, the truth is the truth. It doesn't matter if you have the whole world agreeing with you. It doesn't make you right. And that shouldn't have to be said, but for some reason you have to tell this kind of stuff to everybody, because these are the things people do to try to convince themselves that they're in the truth and that you're wrong. And they use all kinds of other things you can look up, like debate tactics, using like ad hominem attacks, like destroying your character as if that makes you wrong. Like, I said 2 plus 2 is 4. And it's like, well, Hitler believed 2 plus 2 is 4. Are you with Hitler? Well, if he said 2 plus 2 is 4, well, in that sense, yeah, he was right. That doesn't mean I agree with everything from him, right? They try to mix you up with that and destroy your character with something like that. Or they'll use like straw man arguments. Oh, you believe 2 plus 2 is 4. Well, that must mean you believe the moon is cheese. And it, like misrepresent what you're saying. Like, oh, this person is saying the moon is cheese. And it's like, how do you get that? All I said was 2 plus 2 is 4. Right? So they somehow twist things to make you say things you never really said, to try to, again, misrepresent you. So these are just some things to think about when you're talking to people. If they start acting like this, it's either because, they're miserable and they're trolling you and they just lack the humility to admit they were wrong, and they want to bring you into their misery because their ego hurts when they're wrong, and then when they're wrong, they're like, oh, they don't want to admit it because it hurts. So instead they want to irritate you to bring you into their irritation, because misery loves company. It's a form of hell. They're in a hell, and they want to bring you in with them, right? So they're not alone. And so if they're like that, a lot of times it's best just to ignore them. And they're saying all kinds of things that are just straight up stupid. 2 plus 2 is 5, and this guy over here doesn't believe in all this thing. They're saying all this stuff. Whatever, let them talk, right? Some of these people are just devils, or devil possessed, or working with them, right? Or online, there's probably a lot of bots and AI now doing this kind of stuff. It's best, again, block them, ignore them. Don't waste your time with it. Right? You see people doing this, if you feel like it, give them a chance to be like, hey, I see what you're doing here. You're being manipulative. You don't care about the truth. You have a certain agenda here, and you have a belief that you're going to defend even when the truth refutes it. And if they lack the humility to accept that and they're just going on, ignore them. Or if need be, block them, right? Jesus says not to give your pearls to dogs and pigs. Your pearls represent the truth. And if you give pearls or your truth to someone who is spiritually a pig or a dog, they're just going to tear apart that truth, and they're going to tear apart you too. They're just going to rend you apart, because the truth reveals to them what they really are and that they need to change. And they don't want to. They want everything else to change around them, because everything else is the problem, not them. The truth is the problem, and the truth needs to change to make them feel better and fit what they want to be true. It's a whole bunch of narcissism, sociopathy, and psychopathy, to be honest. Mental disorders and influence of devils, or straight up being devil possessed, or even a devil themselves, right? But there's a lot of people who are doing this stuff. Families doing it to their children, communities doing it to their community, churches doing it to the congregation, cities and governments and what have you doing it to their citizens, right? And the media doing it. I mean, it's everywhere. The businesses doing it. At your job, at schools are doing this kind of thing. It's everywhere. But it all comes from the father of lies, who will appeal to anything other than the truth. He won't use the truth. He wants to just be able to say whatever he wants to say and not be questioned. Kind of like Donald Trump. Everything that's against him, false news or fake news. He doesn't want to be questioned. If he says it, it's true, and that's that. Even though he's obviously a lying con man, right? And he uses a lot of these kind of things. Fear tactics about what's going to happen if he's not in office and if the other side's in office, right? Gaslighting and trolling other people. He does a lot of these things, right? And you just need to pay attention to this. Another thing, I guess, that is used that's a little bit flipped is using things like flattery and false promises to make you feel good, right? Because you'll like somebody who flatters you and gives you some false promises like, oh yeah, good things are going to happen to you, I can tell, right? They tell you this kind of good news stuff, and then they tell jokes and make you laugh, right? They build that kind of rapport with you. So you now don't want to really say anything about their lies and their bullshit because you like them now. They make you feel good. You don't want to say anything against them now. That's again manipulating your emotions in your mind to go along with their bullshit. It's just manipulation. These people really don't care about anybody but themselves. So this is just something to think about, pray about, and if you see this is fighting that spiritual fight, which is done with words to win the hearts and minds of people, please support this channel with your prayers, with giving a thumbs up, and subscribing, hitting that bell icon to get the notifications, sharing the video with others. Watching the video all the way through helps in taking the information here and applying it to your life and helping other people apply it to their lives. Also is supporting my channel here. And interacting in the comments section helps out too. It generates attention to the videos. And if you want and if you can financially support, there's links in the description to do so if you feel like you want to and that you're able to do so. That would be greatly appreciated so I can keep this going here. So with all that being said, thanks for watching and take care.